In politics tonight, expanding Nevada's marijuana industry has become a very controversial process, punctuated by lawsuits by existing dispensaries who claim they were left out of the next round of licenses.
It is an issue the Politics Now team has been looking into for the past 5 months since the state issued 61 new provisional dispensary licenses. And Politics Now co-host Patrick Walker live in studio with new information.
Well, Brian and Denise, let's think about this. It's important to keep in mind these are applications for public privileged licenses with a process that really has been anything but transparent. It's essentially been shrouded in secrecy, but for the first time, we're getting a look at how those licenses were scored. When the owners of the Grove dispensary near the Thomas & Mack Center learned they were denied new licenses, it came as a surprise.
When we found out we didn't get any licenses, I was just flabbergasted.
Co-owner John Ritter says the dispensary has been used as a model for state regulators when giving tours to officials from other states who come to Las Vegas to learn about how the Silver State's marijuana industry functions. The Department of Taxation, which oversees the marijuana industry, only tells a business whether it was approved or denied for a license and allows them to view how they scored in a number of areas. The department, citing regulations, says the scores and the applications themselves are not public information. Ritter says he would have been happy to cut his losses if he could understand why his application received the scores it did and how those compared to other successful applications.
They would just show your scores, and the minute that you started asking questions, they'd say, oh, we can't answer that, can't answer that, can't answer that.
When we first tried to get answers, our requests to see the applications or some of the information from them were denied. Now, people who have seen the information are showing us examples of what is catching their attention. Essence Dispensaries was awarded the highest amount of new dispensary provisional licenses, 8, spread out across the state. On 2 of the applications, one source pointed out that the same 3 graders gave the same scores on 10 of the 24 criteria, and in each of those cases, one grader was only 1 point off from the other 2. The combined summary scores between the 2 applications mirror each other, with one exception. The applications were scored on 3 different days. The concern raised, how can the scores for 2 different locations be so similar? In January, we were made aware that at least one tax commissioner had some questions as well, and through a public records request, we obtained questions about the scoring process that were raised by Commissioner George Kalesis. The agency's responses were not included, and it took a second request for us to obtain those answers. The questions show a concern by Kalesis over the specifics of how categories were graded and how the graders, 6 people hired from a temp agency in Carson City, were trained. The department pointed to being able to use its discretion to hire temporary workers and the training of those workers by department staff to use as graders in response to those questions. Commissioner Kalesis declined our request for an interview for this story about his concerns. In response to our previous questions of the department about the process and transparency last month, a spokesperson told us, quote, while we do sympathize with the frustrations of those who did not get licenses, it stands to reason that those entities that submitted the strongest applications and scored the highest would have ranked in the top of the applicant pools within the jurisdictions they applied. Well, some related movement today at the governor's request, a bill to bring more transparency to the application process and allow more of the information that we've been requesting to be released, passed unanimously out of the Assembly. Senate Bill 32 previously passed unanimously out of the Senate. It now goes to Governor Sisolak's desk to be signed into law. Sisolak has noted in the past that he would sign this bill. Back over to you.